jab, jab, jab. That's what my insides felt like at any time or even all the time, all over my body. I was just 8 years old and already so scared of dying and so afraid of this incredible pain. I ignored it as best as I could because I didn't want to know what was wrong. Not to mention that the doctors all said I was just faking, just because they didn't know what was going on. Years and years and years afterwards, I eventually found out my body had been pummeled by 3 serious chronic illnesses this whole time, and it's only now that I'm able to do anything about it. The pain only got worse as I grew up, but I gritted my teeth through it all. Soon, I turned 12 and got my first period. Excited at finally becoming a woman, I was thrown into betrayed confusion when I started passing chunky clots. Felt like I was on fire every time I peed, had unbearable cramps, and even worse, ovulation pains. And yet I still bore with it, thinking that this must be what every woman experienced early on. I was wrong, of course. The first mistake of many. 15 now, and I began to have constant lower back pain and oddly colored discharge. Thinking I had a kidney infection, I persuaded my dad into taking me to a clinic. They told me it was a UTI. When I said I'd been having these symptoms for years, they didn't do anything with that information. Just brushed me off. Even though they put me on medication, nothing changed. They prescribed me different ones, again, for UTIs. Nothing. I soon had to go to the ER because the pain became unbearable. But still, no one knew what was happening. They tried to do a pelvic exam, but I pulled away, crying and yelling. It felt like I was being broken apart. Was it because I was a virgin? No, but I didn't know that at the time. In fact, no one else knew what was wrong with me, so they just sent me home. It became a routine. I was put through CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasounds, got cultures done, and blood work, but everything came back a big fat 0. That meant I was perfectly healthy, right? Nope. I was so healthy that after 2 years of this song and dance, my family gave up on me and sent me to live with my grandma. I was losing my mind on meds I should have never been on. After a few weeks at my grandma's, I was found lying on the ground in a park, shaking. I guess someone called an ambulance because the next thing I knew was paramedics looking at me in disgust as they put me on a bed in an unfamiliar space full of strange sounds, voices, and smells. Understandably, I started freaking out and they had to strap me down, yelling at me that they'd lock me in a room for psychiatric evaluation if I didn't stop. To this day, I remember being mocked by dozens of paramedics, doctors, and nurses. In the end, that's exactly what they did. I had to go to an outpatient psychiatric ward, slapped with the label bipolar. They gave me medication, but I didn't take them, instead lying about it to their faces that I did. The doctors would say I was doing well when they thought I was taking them, and the opposite when they thought I wasn't. I guess you'd call this reverse placebo? Either way, it was just a whole lot of more nothing. After a month, I was released and sent to a new school. The pain never stopped, and soon none of the staff, teachers, or nurses there believed me. The school counselor called me a class disruption. The gym teacher told me I was a failure in front of everyone because I couldn't finish a run, and they were positive I was faking being sick. I was the role model for what not to be, and all the other students isolated me. It got to me. After high school, I gave up going to the hospital, telling myself I was actually crazy and trying to ignore my pain. This was pretty hard since by now my period cramps were so bad that they'd make me vomit. I moved back to my hometown and began to physically break down even more. So I bit the bullet and went back to the same clinic. UTI again, of course. The same medication, of course. Medication that wasn't doing anything for me and that I was actually allergic to, causing me to pass clots from the front and the back. Somehow, I managed to see a gynecologist. He told me I had internal cystitis, which is a chronic condition with symptoms similar to UTIs. I also apparently had overactive bladder syndrome. Finally, 2 diagnoses that seemed right. But when I went on the medication, it still didn't help the pain. So I stopped taking them. It was a step in the right direction, but still no cigar. It was the ultimate worst during my period cramps. They kept me awake all night, and if I did manage to sleep, they would be right there when I woke up. It felt like there was something breaking and tearing behind my belly button. Plus, I had these piercing throbs in the back of my head. I felt those same lancing pains in my legs and groin area, making it hard to walk or breathe. But by now, I learned to deal with it in silence. I stayed quiet about it for the next year. I was 19. For some reason, I started seeing ads on TV and Facebook about something called endometriosis, a chronic condition where the cells from tissue lining your uterus, called the endometrium, travels and grows outside on the surrounding layers of tissue, like the fallopian tube or the ovaries. This can cause internal bleeding, cysts, painful menstrual cycles and urination, and potentially fusing organs together. It's also bad because then the body thinks the misplaced tissues are invaders, and so the immune system tries to do some misinformed housekeeping, resulting in all sorts of pain. Nasty stuff, and I forgot all about it since my cramps and pains happen 24/7, period or not. Months and months afterwards, I did some research on a whim and was shocked to find that internal cystitis and endometriosis are related, with the former mimicking the latter in some cases. In growing fear, I joined some Facebook groups and talked to the women there. All the symptoms matched up. They even told me it didn't have to be pain during my period. Endometriosis could happen around the clock. Like a hit to the chest. I was convinced I had endometriosis. Jumping on this, I scheduled an appointment with a new gynecologist as fast as possible. She set me up for a laparoscopic diagnostic operation, and also prescribed birth control to help ease the pain. May 23rd, 2019. Me, at 20 years old, finally and officially diagnosed with stage 1 endometriosis. I started medication to force my body into an early menopause to help with endometriosis. But nowadays, as I see more and more specialists, I'm finding that there are a lot of things in my body that have gone overlooked and unchecked throughout the years. Because of endometriosis, there's a risk of infertility, as well as malignancy and cardiovascular issues. So I still need to keep a close eye on any strange symptoms, and speak out immediately if there are. Endometriosis is actually extremely common, affecting 1 in 10 women. But it takes 7 to 12 years for a proper diagnosis. Why? Just look at my story. So many doctors have misdiagnosed me while I dealt with this chronic condition. A biopsy is the only way to 100% confirm the diagnosis too, since it doesn't show up on any kind of scan. I want to encourage women and girls to always keep pushing until their voice is heard. Always seek help if something feels off. Staying silent and pushing down your doubts will only affect you, and only you, in the long run. If nothing else, please do your best to stand up for your own health.